Hey, hi, hello! Welcome back. Potentially slightly more organized today. I'm gonna be making a Peperonata, or something along those lines. And yeah! Talking a little bit on the side. I've had a lot of thoughts in the past day. But I think... Okay. A lot of it was to do with school. With my lectures and stuff I was reading for uni. And we were reading stuff on AI and violence and those kinds of things. So that was, in itself, quite heavy. And I think it's quite frustrating, or difficult to think about sometimes. Because it's so much and such heavy topics and so many things that play into it and so many things that come out of it, and it's a lot. But yeah, it's a good thing. Another thought which I did kind of also want to philosophize a bit more about is the pressure to educate oneself. And it's interesting. I think in general, talking about stuff is interesting. I find it difficult sometimes to start discussions, or to kind of share opinions and thoughts on things, because there's so many different viewpoints and so many different aspects to issues and such. It's not working. I think I'm just gonna cut up here because then you can see my face. But yeah. So there's so many points of view from which to approach different issues, and so many, yeah. Also so many different effects on different people, different communities, and everything. And I mean, of course, everything is incredibly nuanced and such. And so I sometimes find it difficult to shape an opinion and communicate an opinion, because I feel like a lot of things in life are yes, but, or no, but in this case, but like that, and that is of course all very valid. And yeah, I do think this feeling is probably also quite a product of our time, and is partially a product of how discussions and conversations are handled in the public sphere or on social media. And the idea of researching and the pressure to educate oneself, I think, plays into this, actually, to a certain extent. And that is because I feel like I can't have an opinion on an issue sometimes, because there's so many more people out there who have more expertise or experience on an issue, and I feel like I don't know enough about a lot of topics, which, to be fair, I don't. But on the other hand, you know, there's always so much more you could learn, so much more you could research, and just see, there's still so many paprikas left, and I still have more in the fridge. But yeah, just there's so many. There's always more to learn, always more to know, and I find it difficult to sometimes find the point at which I can say, okay, I can have an opinion on this. And, yeah. Which on one hand, you know, it doesn't make sense to... I think it's an interesting question. As from what point am I allowed to have an opinion on an issue? You know, and to what extent am I affected by an issue? Does that allow me to talk about it or not? All these things. Very interesting points of discussion. So this is your question. What do you do with garlic? Do you chop it, do you grate it, or do you crush it and then chop it? But, yeah. I think I'm a bit... Jeez, this light is stupid. Let me get my... Bit more of a spotlight. There we go. But yeah, I'm a bit melancholic today, and just kind of thinking and processing, because I was reading so much on violence and danger and a lot of different viewpoints from which to look at these things, and yeah, it's tough. And then there's so many different dangers and things and realities and opinions and different perspectives around the world. And then I'm also very often thinking like, to what extent do I have the responsibility to, if I have the means and the resources to, educate myself on these other opinions, other viewpoints, and the issues, and just in general, because I feel like there's so many things you could get knowledge about. There's so much knowledge, and so much knowledge which I have access to. I obviously very privileged. I have the internet, technology, libraries, people, professors, everything. So much. Yeah. And it's always a question, okay, to what extent do I now have the responsibility to educate myself? And how far does this reach? Like, how many and what topics should I educate myself? Is there some topics that I have a responsibility to educate myself on? Like, you know, news, what's going on in the world, etc. Do I have a responsibility to know what's going on in the world? Or only things that really interest me? Or, you know? And it can get quite overwhelming, I think. And I need to start cooking. See, thing is, what I find quite fascinating, when I cook, I'm usually a very fast cook, but now when I'm talking, I'm distracted, and so I'm cooking a whole lot slower. But then I'm still distracted by my cooking, so I'm also not talking. Ooh, what container do I do this in? Actually, I might use my wok. Maybe. Okay. But yeah, very interesting thoughts. And I feel like talking to myself is, like, okay. But there's only so far you can get with only talking to yourself. I have not used this one in ages. Fun story, I actually ended up getting this for free off Facebook Marketplace. It was supposed to be 55 Swedish crowns, and then I met with a lady, and I'd already talked to her before. I was like, hey, you know, I have cash, but I don't have it exactly, and I don't have Swish, which is the Swedish kind of money thing they use. So she was like, okay, we'll figure it out. And then we met, and then we just got talking, and then she's like, oh, are you a student? And I'm like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then in the end she was like, you know what, just take it for free. I don't have cash to give back and whatever, and just, it's alright, just take it. And it's been really good, because I only had one pan and a small pot in the beginning, and we were always cooking for like 3 people. And so we really needed a bigger container or like vessel to cook in, and that was the investment. We were very happy to get that. But yeah, this is such a... Okay, I don't think there's going to be non-grey days coming in the near future. But yeah, it's always so fascinating how different places around the world have incredibly similar recipes. Like, this is officially supposed to be a peperonata, but technically, with basically the same ingredients, it could be a shakshuka. So it's always really fascinating and interesting, and I'm honestly not yet sure which direction I want to take it in. I don't want to make it too spicy, to be honest. But actually, I made chili oil the other day because I had a lot of chilies. So I made some chili oil. I don't know if you can see. I made it once before and it was really good, and now I made it again and it's not as good as the first time, but I think it's still fine. So I might add some of that, but I'll add it in the end. I was also gonna do tofu as my source of protein. But yeah. Okay. Well, we're just gonna make a improvised something out of this with... Oh no, put tomato in my hair. Ooh, pepper. From tomatoes and paprikas, and I need to actually get chopping and set up. So let me do that, and yeah, let me talk about something while I do that. Nothing too focused, just something so I can keep my mind occupied. What is something interesting to just talk about? Opa. Good question. I've had kind of a bit of a slower day today, and oh, ew, there's some moldy stuff in here. Let me just throw all of that out. See, that's the thing with food saving. The food is not always in a great state. So sometimes you gotta cut stuff away, which is obviously perfectly fine as well. Right, do I use up all of them? Ah, yeah, come on. At this point, I feel like I'm cooking in ways where I just make a lot to use the stuff up, and then freeze it and have it as leftovers, etc. So I do still have one dinner planned for, or not dinner, lunch actually, with a friend on Wednesday, and we're gonna make a creamy paprika pasta. So it's always so funny how different people cut paprikas, and I'm not sure what I find the right way. I think I'm just gonna try out a bunch of different ones, different ways of cutting a... See, I also refuse to call them bell peppers, because, you know, it's like the ananas. Everyone calls it a way, and then the English language has to go different. Yeah, I will always call these paprikas, even though they're officially bell peppers. But yeah. Also thinking what direction I'm gonna take this spice-wise, flavor profile-wise. Honestly, probably keep it a bit low-key, and more direction Italian spices. So I'll add some, what's this, oregano. I always forget whether it's oregano or oregano, or like which one's which. Anglo-Saxon language. Not sure how that's called. There's this book I just remembered. It's raining oregano. About kind of the origins of language. I've never read it, but I remember my humanities teacher in 8th grade telling me about it. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I really like language. I am so behind on my shopping. Yeah. Enjoy chopping background noises. Ouch. So yeah, I'm afraid this is kind of boring, and I feel like I should cut this part out. In this pepper as well as in the video. Just because it's doing nothing. Maybe I should just not make a video today, because I don't really have a lot to talk about. Yeah. Nice. Such is life. But yeah. This makes no sense. Stop this. Okay. Continuation, because I do think these frustrations are part of life, and I think they deserve a space as well. I need to stop doing this sniffing thing. I have noticed that watching back my other video. Oh my god. Disgusting. So annoying. Do not notice that I do that. Anywho, but yeah. So I think it's just a sense of doom and a sense of helplessness for what I should and could do in the world. And yeah. And I guess this idea of responsibility and agency. And there's a lot. And I think it also goes deeper, and once you start thinking about these things, it's basically endless. And it's just, there's more questions and more questions and more questions. And such is life. But it's just, I don't know. I wonder when is the point at which I should stop. And what action should I take? And how should I conduct myself and use what I have at my disposal? And yeah. Okay. A lot of thoughts. Too many thoughts. And this, I think, is the issue, because I have too many thoughts and too many topics that are potentially interesting that I feel like I can't decide on a single one.
to maybe even think about more deeply. And I mean, isn't this like the choice paradox, or paradox of choice, or however you say it? Yeah. And then kind of along those lines, there's, you know, all of these things, all of my, just on a general existential level, all of my thoughts and feelings and ideas, they're not unique. There's probably people out there who have had exactly these ideas and they researched it, and now there's a bunch of more information and more knowledge and more science behind all of these things. And to be honest, personally, I struggle with feeling like my ideas and thoughts are relevant to an extent, because there's so many people who have the same thoughts anyway, who've done more, who know more, and all of these things. And it gets to me sometimes. Sometimes very often, actually. And I find it difficult to find purpose and meaning in a way, and just to give my thoughts credit. And this is also the thing with all the opinions. There's so many more people who know so much more, so what would give me the right to talk about it compared to people who know so much more about it and are affected so much more by some things, and you know? And I think poses an interesting question of one's place in society and the world. And I think it's also the question, you know, like, what's the scope in which I wish to find relevance? It's like within your community, and that can have different meanings as well. You can be part of so many communities, or of your family, neighborhood, city, country, life. Oh, life doesn't make sense. But, you know, like worldwide, countrywide, statewide. And do you want to be relevant while you're alive, while you're dead, blah blah blah, all these things, all these ideas of meaning. And the thing is, I think everybody, or pretty much most humans, experience these thoughts. I mean, isn't this just like the usual existential crisis, you know, the stuff everyone thinks about? And whenever I talk to some people, they're always like, yeah, well, been there, done that, thought about that. You don't really get an answer. You know. Yeah. And it's like, okay. Cool. Move on, I guess. Interesting. And see, that's the thing. I have all of these questions and thought processes. And I'm sure I could just put this question, like, what is the meaning of life, into Google. And then there's thousands of results. There's thousands of people who've concerned themselves with this from so many perspectives, so many standpoints, you know, and so many different ways of approaching and trying to answer this question. And then it's also like, okay, what do I do with this? Do I try to, like, educate myself on all of these different opinions and approaches, or do I just stick with my personal opinion? Which, question is, can you ever really have your own personal opinion? Because it's built on and based on all of your experiences and your environment and your surrounding, and yada yada, everything's constructed, nothing is ever truly neutral, etc, etc. But at some point when you come to all of these conclusions, I find it incredibly difficult to still sort of go on with life, you know? And I think that's, I mean, one thing which is, it's very often also discussed and highlighted in my field of study. Just the whole idea of, oh, well, everything is constructed and everything depends on the opinion and where you come from and discourse and yada yada yada. Which is true and it's fair and it makes sense, but at the end of the day you sit there and you're like, okay, how am I supposed to act in this world in which everything has relevance, but somehow it doesn't, and then everything has an effect on everything, and then
but nothing is truly this, and it's everything, but then it's also not, and then everything is constructed, but we still need to live within these structures and hierarchies. And me, from my position, how do I act? Do I have responsibility for myself, for my community, for the world, for humanity, yada yada. All these humongous questions, and I think one can very easily get totally sucked into this and just drive oneself absolutely mad. And then when you start factoring in language, and how language is socially constructed, go post-structuralism, that just makes everything so much more complicated, because if you really think about it, every single word, in theory, has so much more depth and built-up meaning and underlying meaning and implications and everything. And so in consequence, all of your thoughts are as well. And it's mini existential crisis. And it's just like, and then you also have to be, or well, I have to, become aware of, okay, it is an absolute privilege to have the time to even bother to think about all of these questions. And does that, because that puts me in a position of power to a certain extent. Of course, I have certain privilege, access, all of these things. And it's like, okay, does that come with its own responsibilities? And do I have a duty to act using all of these things that I have? And then when you go to, it's endless. My mind's going completely crazy. And what do? Do I just ignore? Because I'm trying to keep myself sane, because probably one would argue that first and foremost, one is responsible for oneself and one's own well-being and everything. And of course, these are questions so many people have asked themselves. Nobody's come to an answer. Can you ever truly come to an answer that people agree on? No, of course not. Although I do think fundamentally most people, well, not most people, but a lot of things can be agreed on at some level. But then definitions, meaning, implication, context, yada yada. Oh my god, this world is so complicated. And it's like, well, no shit, Sherlock. But actually, it's alright. Wow. Why is this spicy? I feel very wet. I didn't add anything. Anyways. I think it's the pepper. But yeah. And then, I don't know. Frustrating. And has the potential to drive oneself mad, as I said. And there's so many things and so many... And it's like, how much more do you keep thinking? Because these thoughts and things and implications have so much relevance in so many aspects of your life. Literally, everything you do. And then I do feel sometimes like, okay, maybe I should not think about this, not drive myself completely crazy. But then it also feels wrong to not do that. Once you start questioning these things, it feels wrong to just ignore it. But then again, you can't change everything all the time, all at once. And the thing is, I need to find the official nice word for it, but I'd say, I'm a tragic optimist. I'm not sure tragic is the right word. But I'm an absolute optimist. In my mind, everything seems possible, which is fun, but then it's also and then I'm like, oh, but can I say that? Can I feel that? Is that really true? Is that selfish of me to say? It's a lot of things. Oh my god. And, yeah, and I think after this I will just take my dinner, sit down on my warm cozy couch with my warm cozy blanket, put on a silly YouTube. Well, it's not a silly YouTube video. Well, it is a silly YouTube video at the end of the day, you know. And that's the thing. And there's only so much time, and there's so many things I could be doing. And that's the thing. I'm also not sure where all of this comes from. And this need and this pressure and everything. Ooh, I wish I had sour cream. What happens if you blend cream cheese? And add some lemon? That could technically be sour cream. Actually, I'm really curious. I want to try that. But it's probably just gonna be cream cheese. Did I say cottage cheese? I meant cottage cheese. Probably said cottage cheese. Life, right? And then yes, and then you become aware of how many people are existing in this world and everything, and oh, drives you crazy. Yes, such is life. It's a bit chaotic. It's a bit heavy on the heart, at least on mine today. Just life and the world and all the implications. Yeah, I'm repeating myself, but you get the gist. And then I need to take care of myself. So yeah, I'm gonna do my experiment. Ugh, I was gonna make cucumber salad. But if I don't do it now, I'm not gonna do it. So let me do that. Ugh. But, yeah. I love cottage cheese. In Germany, they do not have decent cottage cheese. And it was really annoying me. But here they do, so that's good. Anyways, this is gonna probably get a bit loud. Ah well. Mini spatula. I absolutely love spatulas. I got them like last week and really enjoy using them. They are absolutely fantastic. They help scratch everything from everywhere, and it makes life so much nicer and makes me very happy. And it's really interesting and very fascinating. And, you know, you could overthink everything. It is actually interesting and on so many levels. But at some point that is not good for the human psyche. And as I said, that probably should be our number one. It's actually really nice. Shocker. Splendid cottage cheese. Wow. But yeah, well, that's that, right? That's my thoughts for the day. Yeah, but that's part of life then, isn't it? I actually really like the consistency of this. Lovely. Great. Lovely. Ooh, I wanted to add some balsamic stuff to this. Cucumber salad. I'm very short. I'm not even that short, but every now and again in life I'm reminded that I am short. Just about reach it, but reached it. I've got this very unhappy looking cucumber. Let me just chop that one up then. And honestly, it might be easier to use a knife. Problem for me tomorrow. There we go. Love that sound. Yep. Anyways, okay, I've got 2 minutes left. So, ooh, I could add. It's not gonna fit taste-wise, but I'm gonna add chili oil to my cucumber salad, and then we're gonna make that work somehow. So, because these chilies are from the food saving, I never know how spicy they actually are. Sometimes they're absolutely unbearable, and sometimes you barely taste them. We will see. I will probably cry. But that's okay. Everybody needs to cry every now and again. So that's that. And I think I'll slowly leave it at that. Ooh, actually I'm gonna add. This is raspberry. Oops. Did that break it? Don't think so. It's raspberry crema con aceto balsamico. Actually tastes a lot like raspberries. It is very nice. And yeah, let's give that a I should probably add a little bit of salt and a wee bit of pepper. And I've got 1 minute left on this recording. Well, that will be that. I might record a quick taste test, and yeah, thank you for listening. This was a bit, yeah, but that's okay. As I said, such is life, and sometimes you're confronted with the heaviness of life, and it overwhelms you, and that is okay, and somehow you will get through that, in a way. Ooh! Oh, that's spicy. That's really spicy. Oh god, I'm gonna cry. Anyways. Okay, so we've got my very spicy cucumber salad and my peperonata with blended cottage cheese. Let us give that a try. Although my mouth is burned from the chili oil. Oh god. That's very edible. I shall enjoy that and then do some stuff to distract me from all of the issues in the world, because there's only so much a person can take, and as we said, gotta take care of oneself, so do that, and yeah, thank you. Hope you maybe found some comfort in relating to my thoughts and worries and all of that. See you next time.